Can you truly trust your best friend? This story will make you question everything about trust and betrayal when your closest ally becomes your worst nightmare. In 2006, Tiffany Hall rushed to a hospital with a lifeless newborn, claiming a tragic premature birth. But when doctors insisted on an examination, she refused, raising suspicions. Meanwhile, Jimella-Tiffany, pregnant and with 3 young children, vanished without a trace. As investigators dug deeper, shocking truths emerged, truths no one could have foreseen. Tiffany's dark secrets slowly unraveled, revealing a chilling, calculated plan driven by something far darker than simple jealousy. The horror didn't just lie in her betrayal. It was in the terrifying depths of her twisted motives. By the end of this story, you'll be left asking, what truly drives someone to commit such unimaginable acts? And how well can you ever really know the people closest to you? The story begins in East St. Louis, Illinois, where 2 young girls, Jimella-Tiffany and Tiffany Hall, formed a close friendship from an early age. They met in kindergarten and grew up together in a rough neighborhood where both faced difficult lives. Jimella had a troubled childhood. She lived in several foster homes and struggled through her adolescent years. Despite these challenges, she remained enrolled in school and met Tiffany, who would become her lifelong best friend. Tiffany, too, had a tough upbringing. At 14, she was arrested for assaulting her mother and had trouble following curfew, attending school, and staying out of trouble. She eventually dropped out of high school. But through it all, Tiffany and Jimella formed a bond that felt more like sisterhood. As an adult, Jimella became a mother to 3 children, Damond, Ivan, and Janella. She faced challenges in motherhood, even losing custody of her children for a time after an incident of corporal punishment. However, Jimella took parenting classes, regained custody, and began to rebuild her life. She bought a car, enrolled in community college, and dreamed of becoming a photographer. Tiffany, on the other hand, became a mother at 16 and faced her own hardships. One of her daughters was seriously injured as a baby, which led to Tiffany losing custody. The child faced lifelong disabilities due to the abuse. After a few years, Tiffany regained custody of her daughters when the charges were dropped, but her life remained chaotic. She continued to get involved in legal troubles, including a charge for possessing a stolen credit card. Despite their difficult lives, Jimella worked hard to provide for her children. She kept them close, never letting them play outside too much in their dangerous neighborhood. She made sure to walk them to the bus stop every day and ensure they had the toys and games they needed. But no one could predict the horrifying twist that would come next, as Tiffany, once Jimella's best friend, would become the perpetrator of a tragedy no one could have imagined. By 2006, Jimella-Tiffany was 7 months pregnant, eagerly awaiting the birth of her baby girl. She had dreams of a fresh start, a future full of hope and possibilities for herself and her children. But while Jimella focused on her family, Tiffany Hall, her lifelong best friend, was entangled in a web of personal turmoil. Life seemed to continually challenge Tiffany, but despite everything, the bond between the 2 women remained unbreakable. Tiffany frequently babysat Jimella's children, trying to be the supportive friend she had always been, even though her own life was far from stable. However, everything began to unravel on the night of September 16, 2006. Tiffany made a chilling phone call to the police, claiming she had just given birth to a stillborn baby at Frank Holton Park. When she arrived at the hospital, the situation took a bizarre and unsettling turn. Tiffany refused to let doctors examine her, a move that raised immediate suspicion. Investigators began to dig deeper into her story, but Tiffany's accounts kept shifting. She fluctuated between saying she had been assaulted and then vehemently denying it. It was soon revealed that no one had known Tiffany was pregnant, except for her boyfriend, a Navy sailor. The autopsy on the newborn, whom Tiffany had named Tiffany Horn, showed no signs of trauma and failed to determine a cause of death. The story became even stranger when Tiffany took charge of the funeral arrangements. Despite the unusual circumstances surrounding her claims, she went ahead with a service for the baby on September 21st. But the funeral itself raised more red flags. Tiffany arrived 2 hours late, a stark contrast to what one would expect at such an emotional event. Only 2 family members attended, which seemed odd considering the gravity of the situation. Among those present was her boyfriend, Keith Horn, who had come from his Navy base, believing the child being buried was his. Meanwhile, Jimella had mysteriously disappeared. No one could reach her, and her family was desperate to know her whereabouts. Phone calls, messages, and social media posts went unanswered. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. The mystery deepened. It wasn't until after the funeral that Tiffany had a conversation with Keith that would unravel everything. Tiffany nonchalantly confessed to Keith that she had cut the baby out of Jimella. The words struck Keith like a thunderbolt. He couldn't fathom what he had just heard. Was it even possible? His mind raced in horror. Without hesitation, Keith sprang into action, calling the police to report Tiffany's chilling confession. The police responded immediately. Just 6 days after Jimella's disappearance, they found her body in a remote area of high weeds near Tiffany's home. The discovery shocked the community. Even more horrifying was the finding of a pair of scissors near her remains, evidence that would point directly to Tiffany. The chilling truth began to surface. That very night, Tiffany was arrested, and as she sat in custody, she began to confess to the unthinkable. She explained that earlier that week, Jimella had been at Tiffany's mother's house, where they spent the day together. The situation escalated when Tiffany, in a violent frenzy, struck Jimella over the head with a table leg, knocking her unconscious. Tiffany then proceeded to carry out the unspeakable act, severing Jimella's life from the world in a gruesome act of betrayal. What was once a story of friendship, trust, and shared dreams had turned into a nightmare of unthinkable violence and deception, leaving everyone, especially Keith, struggling to comprehend the depths of Tiffany's betrayal. Tiffany's actions on the night of Jimella's death were terrifying and unimaginable. After Jimella was knocked unconscious, Tiffany tied her hands and feet with duct tape to make sure she couldn't escape. When Jimella regained consciousness, she tried to break free, but Tiffany, now completely out of control, hit her again and taped her mouth shut to stop her from crying for help. Tiffany then dragged Jimella's body into the bathroom, where she did something horrific. She cut open Jimella's stomach with scissors, trying to take her baby from her. Jimella was still alive during this, but she lost so much blood that she eventually died. After the crime, Tiffany tried to hide what she had done. She wrapped Jimella's body in a shower curtain and left it in a vacant lot behind her house. Tiffany had been planning this for weeks. Just days before, she bought scissors, alcohol, and other items to make a homemade birth kit. She had even been pretending to be pregnant, hoping it would bring her boyfriend, Keith, back from the Navy under false pretenses. The news of Jimella's death and Tiffany's arrest shocked everyone. Both of their families were in disbelief. But things got worse when it was discovered that Jimella's 3 children were missing. The police went to Jimella's apartment to search for clues. They learned that Jimella's partner, Ivan, had last seen the children 3 days earlier, but his story seemed odd because he said they had been with Tiffany that night. The police were becoming more suspicious. Tiffany eventually confessed to where the children were. When the police went to Jimella's apartment, they were met with a terrible smell. Inside They found the bodies of Jimella's children, 2 in the washing machine and 1 in the dryer. They had been there for 5 days, unnoticed, while the police had searched the place the day before without realizing. Tiffany then told the police what happened. She explained that she had lied to Ivan, telling him that Jimella wanted her children and car. Tiffany then took the children and told them they were going for a bath, but instead, she drowned them in the same bathtub where she had killed their mother. Some reports say she even drugged the kids to make it easier to kill them. Afterward, she stuffed their bodies in the washing machine and dryer. No one could understand why Tiffany did this. Why would she kill her best friend? Why harm innocent children? Was she ever really pregnant, or was this all part of a bigger lie? People couldn't stop asking these questions, but no answers came. The truth behind this horror was far beyond anyone's comprehension. Tiffany's confession to the children's murders. Now, let's take a closer look at Tiffany's side of the story. On September 18th, just 3 days before the funeral and shortly after she had committed the unthinkable act against Jamal and her unborn baby, Tiffany had more plans in store. Tiffany spun a big lie to Ivan, claiming that Jamal wanted her kids and her car. This sneaky story let Tiffany pick up 7-year-old Den, 2-year-old Ivan, and 10-month-old Janella. Once she had them, Tiffany casually told the kids it was time for a bath. But instead of a fun splash, one by one, she drowned them in the same bathtub where she had killed their mother. Some reports even say that she drugged the kids with cough syrup before putting them in the tub, making it even easier for her to carry out her horrific plan. After the terrible act, Tiffany stuffed their tiny bodies into the washer and dryer of Jamal's apartment in the John the Shields housing complex. By this point, she had not only taken her best friend's life and that of Jamal's unborn baby, but also confessed to the murders of her 3 children. All the kids were naked except for a pair of underpants on one of the children. Surprisingly, Tiffany never gave any reason for why she killed Jamal's kids, leaving everyone puzzled. Why would someone take the life of their best friend? What could drive a woman to harm 3 innocent kids? Did Tiffany really have a miscarriage, or was she ever even pregnant? Did she struggle with mental health issues? The questions seemed never-ending. The funeral of Jamal on September 29th, 2006, was nothing short of overwhelming. Over 700 people, family, friends, and strangers, came together, drawn by the tragedy of a life stolen too soon. As they gathered to mourn, the air was thick with sorrow, but also filled with memories of Jam's radiant smile, the childlike joy that lit up her face whenever she spoke of her kids, and her unique quirk of easily becoming bored. People shared stories, their voices trembling with emotion, recalling the lively and distinct personalities of her children, their warmth providing a brief, bittersweet light on an otherwise devastating day. In a shocking show of unity, the community raised over $330,000 in just 3 days, an incredible outpouring of support to help cover the funeral expenses for Jamal and her children. Yet the true cost of this tragedy was far greater than any dollar amount could measure. As the investigation into Jamal's death unfolded, Tiffany's role in this unimaginable horror became clearer. Initially, she was charged with the brutal murder of Jamal and her unborn daughter. But as the police dug deeper, 3 more chilling murder charges were added for the children. Tiffany's plea of not guilty sent shockwaves through the community, her refusal to take responsibility only adding fuel to the fire of suspicion. A psychiatric evaluation was ordered, but Tiffany's behavior grew even more erratic. Her initial defense, a public defender, seemed inadequate for the weight of the crimes she stood accused of. But when the state announced that they would pursue the death penalty, Tiffany's case took an even darker turn. She was assigned a new attorney, one seasoned in the most grave of criminal cases, someone who could perhaps keep her from the ultimate punishment. But with each passing moment, the reality of Tiffany's actions seemed harder to escape, and the world wondered if any defense could save her from the horrors she had unleashed. James Gomry, one of Tiffany Hall's lawyers, mentioned that while Tiffany was deemed mentally fit to stand trial, she also had some serious mental health issues going on and scored in the mid-70s on the IQ scale. But what sets Tiffany apart from other women who have committed similar crimes is that she already had kids of her own. Her daughters were just 7 and 8 years old at the time of the murders. On June 10, 2008, Tiffany was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the horrific crime of murdering 5 people, including Jimella and her children. However, in September 2008, Tiffany tried to backtrack on her guilty plea, claiming her lawyer didn't do a good job defending her. Fortunately, the court shot down her request. In 2012, she filed another petition asking for a new lawyer, arguing that her trial attorneys weren't up to par. That one didn't get anywhere either. But Tiffany didn't give up. She felt strongly that her lawyers didn't properly investigate her mental health or whether she was fit to stand trial. In her petition, Tiffany claimed that Gish didn't even get the paperwork for her psychiatric evaluation until 2 days after she had already entered her guilty plea. The report from a second psychiatrist, who was supposed to figure out if she was sane at the time of the crime, was stamped as received on June 11, 2008, while Tiffany had made her plea on June 9th. The first report said Tiffany was fit to stand trial, but it didn't answer the most important question. Was she sane when she committed crime? The second report revealed something shocking. It showed that Tiffany had a long history of mental health problems, starting in her childhood, with many hospital stays. She was diagnosed with severe conditions like psychotic disorder, PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and mild mental retardation. Despite all of this, Tiffany didn't back down. She kept fighting. The court decided to let her continue her fight after reversing her denial for post-conviction relief. Tiffany's new lawyers worked hard in 2015 and 2016, asking for more time to perfect her case. She even asked for a new lawyer, but the court said no. In the end, her petition was dismissed because it didn't meet the requirements, but Tiffany wasn't finished. She appealed the decision, claiming her lawyer didn't do enough to fix the petition. In 2020, Tiffany finally won her appeal, which gave her another chance to file for relief. Her case might take years to resolve, but at least Jimella's family can find some peace knowing that Tiffany is behind bars. Tiffany, now 42, is held at Logan Correctional Center in Lincoln, Illinois. Jimella's stillborn baby girl was exhumed and buried with Jimella and her 3 other children in Stat, Illinois, bringing a small sense of closure to the family. Tiffany's case is one of the most shocking and disturbing crimes ever committed by a woman. It's a reminder that we can never fully understand what someone is capable of. Now we ask you, is life in prison enough for what Tiffany did? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Tiffany truly deserves to stay behind bars for the rest of her life? Share your opinion in the comments below. If you're captivated by these intense, thought-provoking stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling deep dives. Your support helps us keep bringing you these compelling cases. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.